and they don't really care what you call. They care that you're able to. They care about how you make them feel and whether or not you can solve a problem. And Community Action Agency is in a position to help people solve problems.
All right. Could you explain the mission and vision of the Community Action Agency of New Haven?
Our mission actually recognizes that we're all different human beings merging with different circumstances, different sets of challenges, and different ideas about how we want to claw through our way, a pathway to success. And so our mission simply is that we offer people a pathway to prosperity for people trying to claw their way out of poverty. And pathways to prosperity means essentially that there are different roads for different people. We start at different places on the chalk line, and we have different ways that we think about how we want to make our life fulfilling. And we try to meet people where they are and try and understand their circumstance and to do that. And our vision is that we believe that everybody has an inherent right to fulfill their view of what they believe to be success for them. And we don't try to change their minds, but to help them sharpen their view about how they get to where they need to go. But more importantly, Community Action, not just in New Haven, but nationally, has a promise that we say that Community Action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. And Dr. Perry, I'll just make this last comment, mentioned that he and I are fellow graduates of Livingstone College. Livingstone is a very small, historically Black college with about 900 to 1,100 students. And I'm proud to say that a local New Havener is now the 13th president of Livingstone College. It was at that small college that gave me my start. I was going nowhere. I'd grown up in the South, in Jim Crow South, legal segregation until my 11th grade year in high school, and happened to get a football scholarship to go to Livingstone, and it changed my life and my outlook. So that's a little bit about me and about how I got here. It was but for the grace of God that I sit here, because there were a good number of circumstances that could have turned my life around and made it like many other people that I grew up with, and God spared me to serve, and I do that without fail.
Thank you so much. Wow. What are some of the key programs and services that CAAHN offers to the community?
The program that people most identify us with is something called energy assistance. That's energy assistance. We serve anywhere from 10 to 12,000 people. The interesting thing about it is that it's the program that people know us by, but we provide a good number of other programs. It is through that program that people get referred to other programs. We believe that a key element to understanding poverty and extricating oneself from poverty means you've got to also understand something about the value of money. You've got to understand how money moves in this culture, in this society. And so we have something that's also called a Financial Capability Center. We partner with a good number of organizations around that, including the City of New Haven's Financial Education Program, and LIST provides support. M&T Bank helps supports that, and the Community Foundation and a good number of other funders help to fund that. They agree with us that financial literacy is an important element, especially in this day of age of technology and fast-moving economies. Another one is Aging with Grace. That's a program that we run for people 55 and older, because we understand the value of social engagement. As you get older, oftentimes people tend to isolate themselves, and isolation ages them faster. Aging with Grace provides an opportunity for people between typically 55 and 70 or 80, an opportunity to get out, to be among their peers, to share social gathering together. At the middle of all of that, we see of the 10,000 families, we see about 2,000, 2,500 people in individual case management, and that's where people decide that they want to have a little more work to help them think about how to focus, how to sharpen, and the pathways they need to get on, the pathway they need to get on to improve the quality of their life. We provide something called Healthy Start. Healthy Start is a program for pregnant and parenting moms, many of whom are low-income African-American women who are pregnant, oftentimes for the first time or the second time, with limited resources. Healthy Start engages those women and their partners and families to help the child get off to, as I said, a healthy start.
Wow, that is a mouthful. That is something.
You also still have the fatherhood program?
We do have the fatherhood program. We just suspended it about a couple of weeks ago. We're involved with another men's health initiative, and that's going to be emerging soon. And we will identify fathering as part of the whole issue around men's health.
All right. How do you measure the success and the impact of your programs?
There are a number of ways. Sometimes people come and they want only one service.
Mm-hmm.
They get energy assistance, or if they apply for energy assistance and they're eligible. Oftentimes people think of success as being measured by, grades or numbers. In school, when you were going to be graded on a test, you wanted to have 80 to 100 to pass. That was a passing grade. You didn't want to have that. So what we try to do is, of the 10,000 or 12,000 families, we know that 80% of them, 80 to 85% of them get us service that we could quantify in dollar values as being equivalent to money. And so we want at least 80 to 85% of our people to reach the goal that they have set or to acquire the service that they have asked for. And if it's a service that we don't provide, we have an obligation to move them seamlessly to one of our 370 or so partners in the region who actually might be doing what we do not do. And depending upon the program, how we measure it, Dr. Clayton, is different because we also use something that looks at what's called 19 dimensions of service. So depending upon what the person comes in for, it could be because they're unemployed, it could be because they're underemployed, it could be because they need heat, it could be because they just got laid off. Then they're put on something called a Roma scale, and a Roma scale essentially puts people in a series of gradation based on those 19 dimensions of service, and it determines whether or not a person is in crisis when they come to us, whether or not they're vulnerable, and if they're in crisis, and about 98% of the people who come to us are in crisis, our goal is to get them to being stable. The Roma scale goes from in crisis to vulnerable to stable to progressing and to basically successing. Our goal is to get people to stable as fast as possible in the shortest period of time, because people can't focus on anything else if they can't eat and they don't have money in their pocket.
If I was in church, I'd say amen.
Yeah, Amos, at New Opportunities, I think they use the same scale, a similar scale anyway.
The same. They use the same.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things about that intake that I like is that it goes through like a litany of social determinants. So are you dealing with mental health issues, or do you have food? So I think that is so awesome. And I think that for medical institutions and for the Medical Research Society, that information is almost invaluable and in terms of partnering with these health agencies, looking at the disparities, you already, and these CAP agencies already have most of the data that I think would be very helpful for researchers going forward with their research.
You're absolutely right, Dr. Perry. What's interesting is that when a person comes to us, unlike many other not-for-profit organizations, a person may not know exactly the right place to go to. If they have a mental health issue and come here and we don't provide that as a primary service, we're obligated to try and help that person identify the most appropriate place to go and then ensure that they get a connection doing that. We collect a hoard of data about the various needs. And so a person may come here for one thing, we might identify that they have 3 or 4 other needs that we can address. And that's what the assessment does that you're talking about, that lends itself to those 19 dimensions of service. The 19 dimensions of service typically identify any particular issue that one might arise in a person, an individual or family's life. And our obligation is to help them begin to address that if they're willing. Obviously, no, we can't force people to do anything they're not interested in. Some people will come and they will come for one thing like energy assistance. And even if they have some issues around limited income, may not have an interest in working on that. And so we meet people where they are and we work with them within the time that they want to make available. But poverty it's a criminal. It steals people's future. It robs them of their hope, and it leaves people languishing in a legacy of doubt and self hate. And some people give up trying. Our job, partly your job, as leaders of religious institutions, is to help people embody the spirit of hope that we embrace in our promise, to renew a new way of thinking about their lives and understanding that they too are deserving of a good life in whatever way that is defined by them and for them. So the instruments that we use to try and help people along their way helps us, and actually many of our workers have actually been our clients. We're sort of like the hair club. Yeah. So we like the hair club. We just not owners. We also are participants too. And we do that because it's important for the identification, that people understand. And strikingly, many of our workers didn't believe it was possible for them to break the chain of poverty either. And what we had to do was to show them that unless they can get to a point where they can believe and organize their lives in such a way that it shows improvement, they can't convince anybody else that it's possible. And that's one of the reasons we use people who have experienced many of the problems that our clients experience, from being unhoused to having better education around health literacy. And at the heart of poverty is also ill health, whether that's physical health or mental health. And as you all are doing with YCCI, one of our opportunities and challenges is to educate people about the fact that there are options and opportunities out there that can help them become clear about their circumstance and their situation. And so we do that here at Community Action too. Yeah,
let me say that, I think folk just don't really understand the true value of your agency and of the CAP agencies. I've known people, in fact, I know people personally who've gone to your agency who were in foreclosure and came out still owning their house, getting themselves back on track. I also know that during the fuel assistance, not only is it oil, but it's propane and it's wood, it's whatever folk need to heat their homes with. And also to be a liaison between the energy agencies to help lower their bills to make it affordable so that they can live. My colleague and I, we're focused on the health part, and we're going to come to more of that. But I just think this part is so relevant and important. And my fear is under this new administration, where federal funds may come into play, what do you think the impact of this new regime might be for CAP agencies, not just in New Haven, but across the country?
Oh, well, that's a politically charged one, but I'll take it. It's a I think that you all know well the scripture that says that thief robs and steals and steals. I think that what's happening is that that deception was allowed to enter a space under the guise of people trusting that they would have the interest of individual Americans at heart. And what we're seeing is a level of disruption that is unparalleled. I think that disruption is in the news. What many of the people say that believed the story that was told them in the last election are dismayed. They're experiencing a hardship because they thought, in many cases, that the finger was being pointed at Black people, without understanding that Black people's history in America is American history, and that we have seen this before, and we have overcome it, and we will continue to overcome. And I think that it's that level of inspiration that we have to make certain that the people around us who are frightened and are scared to move know that this too will pass.
That's right.
And so I think that the services are at risk. There is no question about that. And I don't, based on the early moves, there don't seem to be any sacred cows except billionaires and millionaires. But the people that put the new administration in place were basically just working for working people who need a job to take care of their families and to live a decent middle class and upper middle class life. So yeah, there's going to, it's I started my career out in mental health, working in Department of Psychiatry and Community Medicine, John Dempsey Hospital in Farmington. We had an old saying that in the process of a clinical success, that it gets worse before it gets better. And hopefully we're seeing the worst of it right now. But
let me just put a plug in for a moment. We're listening to WNHH 103.5 on your FM dial. Go on, doctor. You can continue.
And you might have heard that last Thursday or Friday, the city of New Haven joined with 5 other states around the country to sue the administration over an award, a couple of awards that averages about $30 million in New Haven alone, and 5 states and 11 nonprofits filed a suit in federal court, demanding the release of what they believe is rightfully was awarded to them for programs in many cases they had begun and had partners, community partners, to deliver on the service, and the administration was withholding um, monies that they rightfully deserved to receive. And so, on behalf of themselves and their constituencies, a suit was filed. Now, the problem with that being the only mechanism is that suits are reactive, and the administration can they can disrupt a person's life, they can put them out of their job, and by the time that the courts react, people's lives have been totally tattered and devastated, and some people don't recover.
You know, it was one of the things that we learned about recently is that in the C.C. Calhoun introduced us to the sickle cell stem cell research, and how this research in young people with sickle cell could lead to a cure. And they did find a person to be in this study, and the study's over $1 or $2 million. And then under this new administration, the question is, will they be able to continue this study, having started it under this new administration? So, you know, it's havoc all over, and in the medical community as well. Like, our jobs have been to somehow empower and to help researchers reach out to bring about cures that our community may not have even been aware of, or new breakthroughs in medicine which our community may not have been aware of. All of that now is in jeopardy. And so we don't know where we're going, but Reverend Clayton is going to follow up with you on your health fair. I know I went to one with Sunday, and you were giving out blood pressure kits, and it was post COVID, and I just think that was just such a wonderful way of addressing a need in the midst of poverty. And so I know we're hoping to partner with you on that and going forward. But go ahead, Clayton.
Before we go into the health fair, I just need to let our audience know that the person that I knew that was in the stem cell program, in terms of sickle cell, the funding, they're going to continue with the work whether the funding comes or not, and that's a great thing.
That's a great commitment.
Yeah, that's a great thing. The middle school is going to continue to work with her because the work has already begun. So, and that is good news.
Yeah, and the research is revealing in some places that sickle cell can be cured, and that's what happens when you get people to participate in medical research and clinical trials.
That's right.
Which is part of what your ambassadors program is doing, and part of what we're doing with equitable breakthroughs in medicine education development. But yeah, all of those programs are under assault. Ironically, all of the research money was cut out of the University of Alabama. They may have it back. Columbia just resolved this issue, which I thought had already been resolved, but sometimes people have a way of making people believe that there is a problem and then solving it to their advantage. The health and healthcare is important. In a meeting Monday a week ago, I said to some of our staff and to some of my colleagues at Yale, if you want to understand the process that is being laid out by this administration, go back and read a very famous book by Paulo Freire called Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Go back and look at the African-American history and arrival on the American shores, John Hope Franklin, and that one of the things that happens when people begin to oppress is they begin to restrict language. They cut you off from the means of living, which at this point, a meaningful income or meaningful work. Then they restrict your location. They restrict your movement. And all you got to do is look at these orders and how they're coming down and what they've designed to do. So they have everybody searching how to pull out language that has to do with Black diversity, inclusion. And so you began to control people by language. You narrow them to a community. You look at the other community order that says that the restrictions that were designed to correct past deeds have been lifted. I was chatting with somebody, whatever your thoughts are about the Second Amendment, Black people are the only people who don't believe in the Second Amendment, don't believe that people have a right to bear arms, but everybody else do. Well, how did that happen? That's just not by mistake. We're supposed to be able to benefit from anything that's in the Constitution. So why is it that Black people are more afraid of the Second Amendment? Because coming out of Jim Crow and coming out of slavery, it was illegal for us to have a gun, unless it was to go hunt for the master. And so when guns were made available to us, they were made available in illegal ways. And so we began to be acculturated to the fact that a gun was not our friend. It was not something that you could use for sports and other kinds of things. And so when people talk about the Second Amendment, we close our ears. We don't want to hear about it. But we have a right to bear arms as anybody else. It's just an example. I'm not encouraging anybody, but I think that it's time for us to open our eyes. In the competing run last year, Kamala Harris said, "We're not going back." Now you have to process what that really means under this administration.
My. Dr. Smith, can you tell us about the health fair that you sponsored in the past, and tell us about the one that you will have in May of this year?
Our health fairs have been inspired by the needs of the people that we serve and the communities that we serve. We don't make up any ideas in a closed room here. We're required to do a comprehensive community needs assessment every 3 years, and we're required to update that assessment annually. Part of the way that we got into health and healthcare directly was during COVID. We learned that people who were cut off from access to vaccines and to test, COVID test, were our clients and other people like us. They were elderly people who didn't drive and dependent upon public service, but who couldn't get to drop-off sites where food was needed. What we also realized is that as the world came to know, that poor and poor Black people in particular were dying at a rate faster than anybody else. There used to be a saying in my neighborhood, when America caught the cold, Black people caught the flu or pneumonia. And so we died from things that were preventable. So we responded as we looked into our service continuum and found that many of our clients were not accessing regular health care or COVID-related services, and began to develop with the State Department of Health, with Connecticut Health Foundation, with Griffin Hospital, and eventually with Yale Hospital, the opportunity to set up clinics to help people get their A1Cs checked, to get COVID tests, get COVID vaccines, and we made it what we called a knowledge and education day. So it wasn't just a traditional go by and look at the tables, but there was an opportunity to have people who had tables who could provide people access to services that they may have not received. And so we found it to be meaningful. We received an opportunity because one of the things we found during years 2021, 22, and 23 was there were many of our clients who actually were being served at community health centers in the hospital, but who had not gone to the hospitals or to the clinics because in order to go to the clinics, they had to wait for long hours. And in doing so, they would compromise time at work. And many of our clients don't get paid if they don't work, but they're not full time. And so they found that if they went for a healthcare appointment, they might spend 3 or 4 hours. That 3 or 4 hours would eventually hurt them at the end of the month if they had more than one medical appointment, because then they'd be short on their check. So we started working more closely with the healthcare clinics and the hospital and trying to rectify that. A foundation out of DC called us and offered us some money when they heard what we were doing and said that to the extent that it's so, if you can identify people who are outside of care and you want to move them, help them reconnect to care, we will give you a grant to buy Uber rides for them to and from there. Because many of the people also had to catch buses or some other paid transportation to get back and forth. And people typically, poor people, Black people, typically, when they are having to sacrifice one thing in terms of their own health in exchange for using money that they don't have, they tend to wait until their health is, that they're in pain. So preventative health is a misnomer. They wait until they're in pain. They feel that there is something wrong before they go to the doctor. We believe that in order for us to help people become re-employed, better employed, that their health has to be in a better state. And so the health fairs are all designed to create that particular response from the community. Now, the health fair that's coming up is being inspired by some work that we've been doing with Dr. Rachel over at the Yale Stroke Clinic, and some of the patients that she's been working with is trying to get the word out. But it's also undergirded by the work that you all have been doing as part of the ambassador program, as well as the work that we're doing across the country, Community Action is doing across the country with other community action agencies with regard to EQB Med. So that's essentially, and we're looking forward to this health fair because not only did we not have a relationship with the stroke clinic, which happens to be a prevalent issue in poor and minority communities, particularly African-American communities, we wouldn't have had your active involvement in this as well. So people will get to see a lot of these efforts come together in an organized and structured way.
All right. Again, we're listening on WHNN 103.5 FM. Dr. Perry?
Yes, Amos, the thing that I'm just amazed at the work you guys are doing and how you have broad stroke the needs, like not only this is just food and housing, but it's also healthcare and, you know, like diabetes and, you know, with the CHEER movement, with the work that you're doing there, chairing that board. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, CHEER is a much like the work that you all were doing with YCCI is unique. It's a novel experience led by Dr. Marcella Nunez-Smith over at the Yale School of Medicine. But it's an opportunity to bring community and medicine together, to begin to close the gap on some traditional structural barriers that prevented the community from understanding what researchers do and to enlighten researchers about how to navigate their way in communities. So CHEER is an acronym for Community Health Equity Accelerator. And what the CHEER does has a guiding coalition, and Dr. Perry, you're one of the members on the guiding coalition. It brings a potpourri of people from academia, from research, and from various walks of life in the community. And I was asked to co-chair that with my good friend Virginia Spell, who's the president of the Urban League of Southern Connecticut. And the CHIA identifies, the plan was to identify 3 different phases of work that would identify serious and intractable issues that affects the New Haven community, where something was thought should and can be done about it, but use a methodology and a process that research had typically left out. And that was a community engaged process and so the first phase of our work looked at pediatric asthma. The second phase is going to look at hypertension. And the third phase that we're vetting now, and we've been doing this now, I thought somebody told me it's 3 years already. But essentially, the Guiding Coalition debates a particular subject. We then look for subject matter experts, usually are physician researchers, to come and brief us on what they know and what is unknown about the issue, and to then get input from the community about what they know as either parents or people who live with other people experiencing those issues, and to try and put together a research team that is a complement of a community team and a traditional academic team. Together, those people will plot a multi-level research analysis, and we're looking for new, quick learning opportunities that if found, the research flourishes. If it doesn't, we kick it out of the accelerator and it goes to find another life. So we're looking for ways to try and see what we have been unable to see when it's looking only at a clinical researcher without community input, and through community involvement, we accelerate the opportunity for cure and change, and have that research positioned for larger study and an opportunity to win bigger grant dollars from NIH or from some other entity.
You know, I think that it's amazing that the way you're partnered with Yale and with Southern and other institutions in the area. And so what we're trying to also work toward is these kinds of partnerships. And that's why we're so happy to partner with you on your next health fair. And even beyond that, we've got some other nuggets in the fire that we want to make you aware of. And one of our partner churches, one of our community ambassadors, Reverend Darrell Blue, hooked up with an agency called PHEN, P-H-E-N, and they brought researchers to their church where they gave our PSA evaluation at that site. And
For
so
men.
100 men got tested at one time. And now that's phenomenal.
That is phenomenal.
The agency is in Massachusetts, and we are trying to look to find a place where we can bring it closer to home. And that's one of our challenges. And we definitely would love to have you working with us on that.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. We're trying to, this men's health initiative that's starting out of the School of Public Health is getting off the ground. It's dealing with men's health, and it's dealing with issues of trafficking of men. You may have heard that the 3 owners of Abercrombie and Fitch was arrested back in December by having spent a decade trafficking young boys, both nationally and internationally. So the work that they are getting their arms around and we are partnering with is around serving the health needs of men, and dealing with that issue, which involves the New Haven police and some other local partners. But you might remember of the Robinson Institute at St. Francis Hospital in Hartford, going back 10 or 15 years. Robinson is an entrepreneur, African-American man who experienced prostate cancer and set up a treatment at the hospital, St. Francis Hospital in Hartford, so that any man, any African-American man, it might be any man who had a prostate issue, would get their medical bill paid for free out of his foundation.
Mama.
And so he's the fellow that he's sort of a quiet entrepreneur. I remembered him when I was coming out of graduate school because he was one of the Black people that owned the club downtown Hartford. But he also, unless he's recently sold, but he also owned all of the Brook Brothers stores in the airports.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a passing flea. You pass by, you never recognize it. So he's a quiet mover and shaker, and he's a multi-millionaire, I guess tens of million, and he plays in a big stage. But he dedicated, and at the time, I was attending First Cathedral, and a young woman who was a member there, her father had been tested in the Caribbean, and they made it possible for him to come and have his surgery and his medical treatment at St. Francis because it was going to all be free. So those kinds of, I don't know if that program is still operating, but it may very well be because I think he gave St. Francis an endowment for that purpose.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Prostate is a real, we interviewed Jessica, goodness, forgotten Jessica's name over at the Cancer Center, and Dr. Leeds at the Cancer Center Thursday and Friday. And they told us that the top cancer diagnosis, the first one is breast cancer, the second one is prostate cancer, third is lung, fourth is colon, and so those four, and we're interviewing them as part of the CHIA process to identify our third issue as cancer, and now we're trying to decide what type of cancer does CHIA then focus on.
You have so much information that has blessed us and has blessed our audience. I do have another question. I need to try to get a little more of this information from you. As director, you have access to information regarding social determinants of health. Information like zip code helps to point to greater pockets of poverty and need, and the gap appears to be growing. How will you address this need, and are there resources available? Resources for housing, food, insecurity, lack of health care, etc.
Well, let's see if I can do it quick because it looked like we're running out of time. I was blessed to be asked to co-chair the Yale New Haven Health Systems 3-year community health needs assessment, which is a requirement that all hospitals in America do as a result of the new healthcare policy that was passed under Obama. And I was asked to co-chair the process of their review this time with the health system staff. It's a process that involves what people typically think of now as the social determinants of health. One of the things we're doing is we wanted to reimagine the way that Yale had pursued this opportunity before and reimagine doing it better and different going forward. The issues are mirrored. The community has identified about 15 priorities. Of that 15, the hospital has narrowed them down to 2 in one of the calls I was on this morning, which is one of the reasons I was running late, is that the steering committee for the assessment and the Yale Community Health Partnership, we were talking about whether the community participants wanted to begin to further narrow that focus down to 2 additional ones. We don't know how that's going to come out, but whatever happens, Dr. Clayton, is that we will have to do this in partnership. Nothing good as it relates to the work of community comes when somebody's trying to do it alone. We're going to need a diverse group of partners. We're going to need to do what we're doing with CHIA, have researchers and academics and community leaders and grassroots people thinking about how we address the multiple and many needs. It's no wonder that mental health is an emerging issue. And some of that is because, and I may get a lot of criticism for this, but we've emerged into an excuse-making economy. Whatever people tend not to succeed at, they have an excuse for it and they want to be allowed to hold on to that excuse.
My mind.
The little bit, when you think about what we call the challenge and change of difficult situation, people now call trauma. Everybody in this life is going to have a difficult time. It makes you resilient, doesn't just necessarily traumatize you. But we monetize the word trauma. And so everybody now says, well, you're, because you don't agree with me, you must not, you think you're trying to do something to me that's injuring my health. So we've got to figure out how to get our arms around how to communicate in this fast world.
I got to wrap it. They're in my ear.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. It's been a great day, great conversation. Thank my co-host, Dr. Perry. If somehow you could just send us your information, as people will need to get a hold of you, want to know more about your program, it'll be a blessing to us and to others.
It's been wonderful. Thank you all for the opportunity to share.
You're listening to the Community Health Watch Show on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio. Stay informed, stay connected, and take charge of your health. We'll see you again.